Hey REBallers, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Baller Show. Today I have the pleasure to introduce you to Camille Davis, a remarkable woman I had the pleasure of knowing, who somehow managed to raise 4 young children while quietly amassing a portfolio of 30 properties in 4 short years. Crazy, right? Camille's journey from being a nurse to the world of real estate investing has been nothing short of incredible. She's going to share with us her secret weapon, mastering sub-2 deals. So join me as we sit down with Camille to hear her personal tale of triumph, the hurdles she faced, and the strategy that led to her success. By the way, if you are new here or haven't yet, please subscribe. We've been growing organically and we could really use your help by sharing this episode with a friend. It helps us more than you know and allow us to help more people reach financial freedom through real estate investing. Thank you and enjoy this video. I'm sorry for this interruption. I've been asked a lot about passive investment, and I understand that there is nothing passive about being a landlord unless you can find a great property management company. So if you own an Airbnb, a vacation rental, or a short-term rental, and you are looking to free up your time, contact our team at Buzz Vacation Rentals at 281-549-8432 or check out our website at www.buzzvacationrentals.com. Thank you, and back to the Real Estate Baller Show. This episode is brought to you by Jet Lending. For over 20 years, Jet Lending has been helping real estate investors succeed. They offer 100% financing so you can be in at $0 at closing. I can always count on Jet Lending to fund my deals. If you're looking to fund your next deal, contact our friend over at jetlending.com. This episode is brought to you by National Real Estate Insurance Group, a national independent insurance agency specifically for real estate investors. I personally use NREIG for my investment properties. They offer a low monthly payment option to help you to lower your cash out of pocket when buying an investment property. If you're looking for insurance coverage for your flips or your rental, reach out to them. You can click on the link in the show descriptions, or you can reach out to Jules at 816-946-8443. All right, I got Camille on today. And Camille, I want to know, I got a big question. When we were at a meeting and you said you bought 30 houses and, at the same time, taking care of 4 children, what superpower do you possess? Look at you, gotta have superpower, because I don't think you're normal.
There's no way I could have known that I could have done any of this. But I think what happened with me is I had this huge life change in my life where I quit my job. So I went to college, got my degree, I'm a nurse, worked at MD Anderson, the cancer hospital, and worked with an orthopedic surgeon before that. But here I am, I get married, I have my first baby, and then now I have this huge choice and this huge life transition to make. And I didn't know it was going to be so hard. But what happened is when I quit my job to stay home with my first child, all of a sudden my life is not mine anymore. All of a sudden it is for this baby. My whole life is for this baby. Even giving up my career and everything that I worked for my whole life. Well, not my whole life, but it feels like your whole life. I think there was this missing piece in me and it drove me. I was really trying to figure out how can I contribute and be this mom, and I knew it was important to be this mom and stay home, but I felt isolated, I felt lonely, I felt like my identity had completely changed, and it had. I actually felt like I lost a lot of my choices, which I didn't. Like, I remember talking to my mom and saying, Mom, I feel like I don't have control over my life anymore. Like, I go out the door and something happens with the baby, and it's like I can't get anywhere on time. And she said, you don't have less choices. You just have to plan a little bit more. So, but I think that drove me. It really drove me. I was looking for a sense of purpose for me, and I wanted to contribute. I was looking for I did actually do a transcription job from home. I was like, maybe I could work for the airlines and do something online, because now all of a sudden your options change. You have to be home. You can't just go work a job. So I was looking for something, and then found this amazing world of real estate where I could do it from home and I could have kids. And I was driven and I was so excited. And it was like this whole other world that just opened up for me, and I could do it and have kids.
Yeah, and you're amazing at it.
Yes. And I know now, looking at other people and investors, I did it completely different. But it worked. I don't know how I found the secret sauce. And then I did some rehabs and flips, and I stopped some foreclosures. But honestly, the way I got my first home is still the best way to do it, and it's still the safest way. So the first home, do you want me to tell about the first home?
Yeah, go for it. I was gonna, my next question was gonna be, so what is that? What's your secret sauce? So spill it.
Yeah. And I did do a lot of research. I read lots of books. I got intrigued with tax sales in Texas, because in Texas you actually get the deed when the taxes foreclose on a property. And that's not the mortgage. That is when someone has paid off their mortgage, they stop paying their taxes. A lot of times because they think now their house is paid for, they don't have to pay for anything anymore. And they forget about the taxes every year. And so I got intrigued with that first. But what happened was, a friend of mine from church, I was just talking to her as a friend. She came to me and she said, I asked her how she was doing. And she said, my husband just left me and I can't make the next payment on my house. I don't know what I'm going to do. She said, I don't want this to mess up my credit. And I'm going to move to California and move in with my mom, but I'm not going to be able to make the house payment on my own without my husband. And so I was like, that is just awful. I'm so sorry this has happened. And so she trusted me to share that with me. And I didn't think of it then, but when I went home that night, I thought, well, what if I just make the payment for her? That made so much sense to me. She was in a nicer neighborhood section, really close to the one we bought our first home in, but we thought we couldn't afford the nicer neighborhood. It had better schools. We didn't want to be house poor, and I had quit my job, so we were on this one budget thing. So we were like, we should just lean into it. Of course, my husband didn't think perfect. My husband was like, what are you doing? No, this is so scary. But I said, look, let's take over her house payment. We'll rent out our house, and we'll move into hers. And I knew the deed was ownership. And so I took the deed to the first home that we bought, that we were in. And I found the deed, and I'm not recommending this for everyone, but I copied the deed. And I knew where to put in her as the seller and me as the buyer, because I could see it on my deed where I was.
Good that you didn't do it the other way around.
No, I could have messed it up. I think about it all, and I'm like, wow, I could have messed this all up. But then I did it, and I had her notarize it. And what I didn't know, I'll tell you after I tell the story, but I didn't have the husband sign. And I thought, oh no, I didn't have the husband sign, but I ended up getting the husband to sign. So I have her sign, and I go down to the county. I found out where you record the dates down in the county office, downtown Houston. And it's on the 4th floor, and I researched it, and I go up there with my 2 pieces of paper, and my husband luckily was off on Mondays, and so he stayed down parked in front of the building, so I didn't have to bring the kids I'm trying to think, I had 2 kids at this time. And so I go in there. I'm really pretty nervous because I've never done this. I don't know if someone's going to tell me I've done something wrong. And I take these papers in there, and I'm in line, and there's all these men in suits, and they have these big folders, look like attorneys, and I'm thinking, okay, here we go. And so I'm listening to everyone talk, and it gets my turn, and I put my piece of paper up there. And I was afraid they were going to tell me I was doing something wrong. And it felt like 30 minutes, but it was probably 5 seconds. And she's marking stuff on the paper, the lady behind the desk. She stamps it, and she says, you want a copy? And I said, yeah, give me a copy. And I felt like I had robbed the bank. And what's funny is when I went down to tell my husband, they took the deed. Like when I got out, I said, they took the deed. And he said, well, get in the car. Let's go, right? Robbing the bank. He was so scared of it that we ended up refinancing that home a year later. But we did move into the house. We did make the payment for her. She was so excited. This solved her problem. She had maybe $20,000 in equity when we got it. But by the time she listed with the realtor, played closing costs, she was going to make nothing.
Or even have to bring in money at closing.
Exactly. She might have to. And it was in fairly good shape, but it was a volatile relationship. And so you could see where the husband had punched the wall and he had thrown a flashlight at the front door. So the glass was broken on the front door. So there was a few little repairs, not much. And she, of course, didn't want to list it the way it was and didn't have money to fix it.
Yeah.
So we were able to step in, get a great
So you took over this woman mortgage. You filed the deed.
Yes. So I didn't get a new mortgage. Left the mortgage in her name on her credit and just started making her payment. And of course I'm brand new at this. So I ended up switching the insurance on it because she had a policy that was $3,000, which would have been a dream today. But I got a $1,500 policy. So I switched the insurance. Of course, there's this $3,000 refund check because the insurance had just been paid. And the refund check went to her and she cashed it. And I remember my husband. My husband was not a bad person, but he was like, she's still learning. Right? You know what?
Well, that's what all the sellers do. I mean, that's, everybody does that. You get a check in your name, you cash it.
Exactly. And it went to her. And I said to my husband, look, we never paid her anything for this house. We really just stepped in and made the next payment. I said, so if she takes $3,000, that's good. She needs it. It'll help her. And so I learned to switch the mailing address for the insurance company so that I get that check and not the previous owner. And I learned how to deposit those checks when they're in somebody else's name. I'm trying to think. There was all kinds of learning. But the coolest thing is when we went to refinance it, that was so incredibly easy. Because I owned the house. I didn't have to come up with the down payment. I didn't pay any cash. I didn't have to have cash in reserves because I already owned the house. So then we were able to just get a payoff of her loan. We owned it and we got a new loan. Of course, today I wouldn't get new loans. I just keep them in someone else's name. But being scared of it and being new. And then I did tell another investor what I had done. And he's like, you can't do that. It's illegal. You're going to get in trouble. So I was a little nervous at that point after doing it. But I have found that it is not illegal. There is no jail for doing this. And I do it all the time now. And it's my favorite strategy. And it's been the best strategy out of everything I could do.
You know, buying a property subject to existing mortgage is not illegal. I mean, they even have that on the track contract here in Texas, right?
Right.
When you buy a property subject to an existing lien, a mortgage lien.
And for the longest time, even up till the last couple of years, I just got the craziest looks from people, and all the title companies thought I was doing something shady, and I got even investors, right? Investors, definitely realtors, because I know they're taught when they go to their realtors training that watch out for people that do stuff like this, and it's a scam, and which I do get because there is a lot of power in this. And if you're going to tell someone you're going to pay their mortgage, you make sure you pay their mortgage. And I know there's a lot of people that don't, and that's where it has that bad name. Is you really can hurt somebody if you're not going to pay the loan that's in their name. So do it right, and it all works. And
unfortunately, there's always those investors that kind of ruin it for us, right?
That's true.
They say don't do what they say. They don't manage their business properly, and then they get in trouble, and get bad rep. The law changed to regulate us, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But so you got your first deal done. You didn't know much. You just did. You just follow your instinct and you did that. And how many deals later now?
Right. Oh, so many deeds. That was 2011. So January 2011, we made that first house payment. I guess it was technically 2010. But then by the time I made the payment. It was January. So then after that, and I saw that it worked, I went and got, just in the next 2 years, it was like 200 deeds. Because I'm like, just sign them over to me, give me the deed, and I'll just go see what I can do to save these properties. Because at that time, there was a lot of properties just sitting empty. Just in my neighborhood, there were 20 vacant homes just sitting. And I was driving.
Really?
Yes, I was driving to just try to get my babies to sleep in the car. Like, this was one day that they wouldn't nap at the same time because mine are really close in age. They're all a year and a half apart, and I have 4. And so I'm like, going to get in the car and drive. And yeah, I saw 20 empty homes in just my neighborhood. So then I wrote down all the addresses. This was after I got the first home. And I wrote down all the addresses. And I found I could find them on Harris County Appraisal District. And I noticed that like 10 of them had different mailing addresses than the actual property address. So I was so intrigued, right? So then I'm like, and I had this yellow notepad next to my computer. And I'm searching, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to send a letter to those 10 that have different mailing addresses. So I sent 10 letters out, handwritten, just like, hey, I'm your neighbor. I'm not a realtor. I know nothing about real estate, really. But it looks like your house is empty. I don't know what I would do to help you, but here's my name, here's my number. I was actually a little embarrassed to send the letter, but I was like, okay, I'll send it out. What can it hurt? I get a call back on the letter, one of the letters. And the lady literally said, did you send me this letter? And I'm thinking, do I say yes? Do I not say yes? I'm like, yes, I did send the letter. And she said, well, you can have the house. I don't want it. Give me $1,000. It's yours. And I was like, what? So, of course I had done the house that I had gotten. And so I was like, okay, we can do this. And so then I kind of asked her what was happening, and she had gotten a job transfer. She owed like $160 on the house at the time, and it was worth $140. So she couldn't sell it. So then she just left. She had to move to Corpus Christi. And so then I said, okay, so how far are you behind? She did tell me she was behind. We found out that she was $20,000 behind. And she had a first and a second lien. In 2006, this is when she got the loan. And a lot of them, they did like an 80-20 loan. So they would do, and then their second loan would be like 8 or 9%, and their first loan would be 5%. Or actually, I think the second loan was 12%. So I ended up finding out, I didn't actually get that house but I learned from it that the second loan, then after I was talking to her and somehow I was getting the mail for it. I think I was trying to go back and forth with the bank and got this thing in the mail saying that they were going to accept a payoff for that second loan, because the first loan was behind and the second loan was going to lose everything if the first loan foreclosed. So they were like, send this money at this time and we'll just give us $9,000 and we'll just forgive the debt. So of course I thought I had to like figure out how to get this money. What I know today is they would have taken $3,000, or they may have taken $1,000 for it. But
so had you know what you know today, that would have probably become a short sale of something.
Right. Well, actually, I would have still taken over the first loan. And then I would have called the second loan and said, look, this first loan's foreclosing. I'll pay you cash today. What will you take? Or this is all the seller can pay. Or this is all the borrower can pay. And they have $3,000. Will you take it? And they will. And I actually did it later. So once I didn't do that house, but later I did it on another house that I moved into in 2016. And it was $100,000 second loan. And they took $3,000 to walk away.
Wow. That's cool to show. Anything is possible.
That's right.
You just have to ask.
That's right. Right. And I knew they were going to get their money. She hadn't paid on it in 2 years. They were just willing to get whatever they could to just walk away. Right.
So you just have to ask.
That's right.
You don't ask, you don't get.
And I did know that from the first one that they had sent that letter saying they would do a discounted payoff. So I did know that they could do it. So then, when this next one came up and it had a second loan, I was like, I'm doing it. I'm going to ask them. We'll see. So
you see how there are people who want to get into real estate, but they were studying, trying to analyze the deal, looking at numbers and this and that, and they never do a deal.
Yes.
But you just went out and just did it.
Yes.
And that's bravery.
It is. It is. And in some ways, I do believe that I did so well with this because I did just go out and do it. And then I just was going to do it. And I know that's not the advice that you should give everyone, because you do want to do your research. You do want to make sure you're going to be okay. There were lots of things that I learned along the way. But I think that's the only difference between me and somebody else is I just did it. And I think that's where we get afraid and we stop ourselves. A lot of times it's our fear. I think almost in anything that we do that's new is our fear, because there's always, whenever we're in a new situation, we're going to always be afraid. I'm afraid of the new stuff that I haven't done. And I'm in the middle of trying to get 4 fixes built by the University of Houston, and it's taken 3 years. And I'm afraid because
I've been hearing about this project since we met.
It's been my biggest nemesis. But this has been way harder than all the other deals I've ever gotten because of the financial pressure that's on me, that I have to float this payment. I can't get them occupied because the city won't give us the final permits. But there's fear there, right? And I was like, why am I afraid? I'm not afraid of this other stuff. But then I have to remember that I was afraid when I went in for that first deed. And I'm sitting there with my 2 pieces of paper and my hands shaking, right? And I was afraid when I got another deed, and the home was listed as a short sale. And the seller's like, look, this is not working. And I ended up getting the deed to it. And I said, well, let me see what I can do. Well, then the realtor was going to come after me. I'm brand new. This was probably deed number 10. And the realtor's like, I'm coming after you. You owe me all this money. And I was like, no, because the seller didn't tell me that they didn't cancel their contract with the realtor. And, and then I'm here in this moment. But what's cool is I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'll deed it back to you, because the seller knew. The seller's like, he needs to just be gone. He hasn't helped me at all, right? And so I'm like, okay, look, I'm going to deed it back to you. We're going to show him that title is back in your care. And then when he's all gone, then we can move forward with our transaction. So we did. I deeded it back to him, and then he deeded it back to me later when the coast was clear. And so there's things you can do. And I think I'm okay doing it and then figuring out a solution later. But it's just because I have done it, and I got a little more experience as I went, and then I learned how to figure out those problems when I was in the middle of them.
Yeah, I think, so that's what I hear and what I admire is that you weren't, afraid to figure out a solution to a problem. Like in this scenario, some people may just jump the gun and, get into arguments with the realtor or whatnot, but you communicate that to the seller, and you figure out a way to work it out with the seller.
Right.
With the homeowner.
Yeah. And of course I didn't figure out that solution right away. Like I would go to sleep at night and think, how can we solve this problem? Right. And then I'm sure it was a few days later that I was like, we could do this. This could work. And then I go to him and he's like, yeah, let's do it. And I do have to think, I think most of us, we do know how to solve the problem. And I we just need to trust that. Right? That it will happen. And it does take a lot of faith, I think. It takes not knowing all the answers before you get into something and moving forward anyway. And that's that whole fear thing. But now, of course, I've been through all these different situations and I have that experience. So I'm not afraid of those situations anymore.
So needless to say, you've had a lot of experience in acquiring property via short sub-2. What do you typically do with them? Do you hold them? Do you wrap them? Do you sell them?
Yes.
And just for the audience, a wrap is when you have one mortgage, right? I'll let you explain it since you've done so many.
You can explain too. So I had 30 properties. So I got my first one in 2011, and I got 30 of them by 2014. 30 that I kept. So I had probably 200 deeds, maybe more. But 30 that I just kept. And these are beautiful, nice homes. These are brand new. There's not a lot of equity, but I could turn and rent them and make $500 a month on every single one. And on most of them, I didn't even put any money into them. So I still have those first 30.
Mm.
I still have them
Mm-hmm.
rented. Most of them are on bulk because that's
I
where I
can only
live.
imagine the equity you have in them right now.
Yes. Yep. I have so much equity, like at least 50%, if not more. And then, it was crazy when COVID happened. I saw them jump in price. So what was maybe they were worth 9,000 at that point, or 9 million. Sorry. My husband was like, "Oh, this was 2016." So 2016 is like, "Oh." He started putting it all on a spreadsheet and he's like, "Wow, these are all worth, XYZ." And at that point it was 9 million. But then COVID happened and then the price of the dollar went down, but the price of the houses went up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which they didn't technically go up, but it's because the dollar went down. But then they appreciated so quickly that then all of a sudden they were all worth 15 million. And I thought, wow. And that was in a matter of like 2 years.
Yeah.
So I thought from 9 million to 15 million, and all I did was I just kept them. So that was
and you put in a lot of sweat equity.
Yes. And in the beginning, it was a lot of time. I was talking to people on the phone all the time. I was talking to banks. I was glued with a phone on my ear. And it was cool because, I could be with my kids and I could be changing a diaper with holding my phone. That was before they had the headphones. Changing the diaper, negotiating with somebody. But it was a lot of work. I had little babies that got up all throughout the night. I was maybe sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night, because
like I said, you were a superwoman.
I was driven. I was definitely driven. It really was like this book that I couldn't put down. It was like the more I learned, the more amazing. And it was just so rewarding for everyone that I was helping. It was so rewarding for me. It's like the perfect thing at the perfect time. And of course I did put the work in, but it was divine. I just have to say it. It was just divine. And it was what I needed and it was perfect. So, but I do hold them all as rentals. In the process, when I would get some of these, I did get one that needed a ton of work. It was an older home. It needed a ton of work. She just wanted her furniture out of the house when I got it from her. So I did turn and flip it. So I would put the money in, fixed it up, and then I just sold it. And I do like that, but what I realized from that was this had so much equity in it, and it had a pool. And by the time I put all this money in to go and sell it, I didn't make as much as I thought I was going to make. And I thought, wow, this flipping side is not what you think it is, right? Because then there was the pool repairs and the budget, like the money was...
There's always surprises.
Oh, yeah. And then the day before we closed, a tree fell on, there was a porte-cochere thing in the back and it fell on it. And luckily I was able to just go get that rebuilt right before we closed. And this was the day before we closed, And so then I'm like, and then it's got to appraise. And then what if the buyer's funds don't go through? And there's just all these what ifs. But when I got the deed to these pretty homes, I just turned and rented them. I didn't put any money into them. I was like, okay. And they stay rented. And I have the best renters I could possibly get because they're in nice neighborhoods. And I'm getting great renters, great tenants because they have families, they want good schools, they have good jobs, and they want to stay till their kids are out of school. So it's
they don't lie. You don't get the typical tenants that lie about everything?
No, it's crazy. I mean, of course you get a few, but very few and far between. And so it's like this dream world for a landlord too. Like low maintenance. I still manage them all to this day because they're easy to manage. And most of my renters have been in there for 6 years. And I'll have a transition a little bit, by the time people move usually in the summer. And so I'll have maybe 3 to 5 of them that I'll have to transition in the summer. But it's it's not really labor intensive. And then I was able to get the contacts all along the way. My yard guy gave me the awesome painter, and then the painter said, oh, I know a plumber. And so it's like once you start doing it and you start taking steps, you then naturally come into contact with the people that you need as you're doing it.
To build your team.
You do, yes.
So you hold most of them. Do you wrap any of them?
So I did end up wrapping in 2014. I ended up wrapping six of them, six houses, and owner financing it to someone else. So I would go take over someone's loan, solve their problem. Then I would turn and sell it to somebody else. And when I would wrap it, it was because I had more cash into it than I wanted to. So the ones that I wanted to keep were the ones that I had basically could just took over the payment and paid hardly anything for it. And then if I had to bring the payment current, let's say one was like $40,000 behind. It was really far behind. And I didn't want to keep the $40,000 into it. So then I turned and wrapped it and sold it. And I got a down payment from somebody of $40,000 was the down payment. Then I sold it to them. So my only issue with wrapping these, and this was like just probably the last couple of years, is one of them paid me off. They went and got a new loan. They were able to get qualified for a loan a few years later, I think 3 years later. So then I was like, okay, well, that income's gone and the house is gone. And their house was worth more. Another one paid me off. They were able to get qualified and pay me off, which is great. I want them to be able to pay me off. But now my income has stopped. My property is not there anymore. I don't have the asset. Yeah. They're not paying down my loan for me while the home the appreciation is going up. And then I had one during COVID where I couldn't foreclose on it. So they had always been behind for a couple of years. They stayed 1 to 2 payments behind, which you can't really foreclose unless they get about 3 payments behind. But then COVID happened. And then their 2 payments became 3 payments and then 4 payments. And I couldn't foreclose. Because
so you sold it to the owner-occupant buyer who lives there and supposed to pay you mortgage, and they quit paying you. Yeah. But you still have to pay your mortgage to the bank.
The underlying mortgage. Yep, I'm still paying the loan to the bank. So here I am paying this payment every month. I can't foreclose. It's not my house. I'm a lender on it now. And so I was like, what am I going to do? I can't just keep paying this. And it just says, and she disappeared. She just left the house and wasn't responding to the text messages. And I finally said, you know what? I'm just going to offer her money to sign this deed back over to me. So I sent her a message saying, hey, I'll pay you $3,000 if you just sign this over. Of course, she's like, I'll meet you tomorrow. Meet here at 10 o'clock. And so totally just met her, had her deed it back to me. She notarized it. I gave her $3,000, which she was already behind, but it was worth it to me.
We gotta keep this part on the down low because we don't want people to hear this. Like,
did they get money? They get behind and they get money to get rid of the house.
Yes, yes,
yeah.
I was a motivator. No, I mean, it happens, right? We call it cash for key, and that's what we have to do. Like the problematic tenants and
it's
borrower that don't pay.
It's that, or I have to pay an attorney, and I still couldn't foreclose anyway, or I just sit and pay this mortgage, who knows, however long. And it really, I think that foreclosure ban was almost a year, so I would have had this property a whole year not being able to pay it. But what I learned from this was when I couldn't foreclose. She had a judgment, $30,000 judgment. She had an IRS lien, a $9,000 IRS lien. She hadn't paid her taxes.
And that's attached to the property.
And it sticks to the property because the home is hers. And I'm just the lender. And then there was something else on there. And then, of course, didn't do any repairs or didn't fix anything in the house the whole time she was there. And she was there like 6 years. So I had to go put a brand new AC in it. I had to go put brand new floors, brand new paint. The roof was bad at this point. I had to do the roof. So I ended up putting $50,000 into this home. Luckily, the market shot up at that point, right? That was right when I was like, oh, I'm not going to even be able to sell this for what I owe now. But then it did. It went up. And I was like, okay, that was lucky. And so then I was able to sell it. I think I made like $15,000. And with the judgment, I was able to negotiate the judgment to 15 because it was an individual that they owed. And I was like, look, I'm not going to make anything. If I give you 15, then you can do a partial release and you can still have this other 15 out there against this person. Maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't, but at least you'll get the 15 now. And luckily she was willing to do that because that would have made it so I made nothing on the house. But so I don't wrap them very often. If I was really wanting to help somebody, I would still do it. But to this day now, I want to just because if I keep the ownership, all of their life does not stick to that property. Like all their doings or whatever happens in their life. And I have more control and I'm not losing my future appreciation. I'm not losing the pay down of the loan, the equity that it gets in it. And so I like to just rent them now and keep them.
I'm with you because I feel like that scenario that you had dealt with. I mean, it's just risky. It's a lot of stress to have to go through that. And the more you do, the more exposure you get, to those kind of incidents. And I know there's people who build their business around this model. Like, right? There's people who use someone with good credit to go buy a house and then wrap it to someone else. And that just scares me.
There's actually, I love her, Till Lowry. She's created this awesome, where she wraps them all the time. And she had up to 100 rentals, and she was so stressed about them that she would go to bed at night and she said, I couldn't sleep at night because I was worried about these rentals. And I don't stress about the rentals. So she feels more secure that someone else owns it. There's just mailbox money coming in, a monthly payment coming in every month. I look at it as it's really the same thing. I still have to pay the underlying loan. I still have to go fix the house if I have to take it back. They, technically they're the owner, so they should be fixing all the things, but they don't always fix all the things. Most of the time they don't.
The people that are behind typically don't.
Right. I get the property as if it was a rental, and then I get all their stuff that comes with it. So I look at it like it's not any more risky than owner financing. I don't think, but we're just keeping them as rentals. Yeah, so I like it. And everybody's different, and everybody has different risk levels and different mindset, but it's I couldn't have done it any better. It really is like the best. I never got in trouble on any of the loans that I took over. I've gotten in trouble on flips. I've only lost money on my flips, never lost money on my subject to deals. And you know what's cool today? So then this is another thing. When COVID hit, I had 30 at the time, or 40. I think I had 40. I now have 60 homes, but I kind of got stuck at 30 because I'm managing them all, and I got them all so fast that it didn't really get more after that until I got better systems in place. But I ended up refinancing the first 5 properties that I got and pulling out some cash to have on hand in case I had a bunch of renters that weren't going to pay me. And you couldn't evict people at the time. So I was like, I might have to float these things and I might be in trouble. Yeah. So I pulled out $100,000 on 5 different properties in cash when I refinanced. So I refinanced 5 and got DSCR loans on them. And I think my interest rate was still awesome because I had a lot of equity and the interest rate was still low. So I still got like 4 or 5% on these DSCR loans because of all the equity. And then I realized I just got $100,000. I got paid $100,000. Tax free. I didn't pay, it's a loan. It's not income. And so I was like, whoa, that's so cool too. And I had heard of stuff like that, but when I actually did it and lived it, I thought this is amazing. So it's like and then I get refund checks in the mail from the escrow company. So I'm getting paid money all the time. And I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Instead of worrying about my bills at the first of the month, all these payments are coming in at the first of the month. And it's just a whole different lifestyle.
You made it sound almost too easy.
Yeah. It really did seem too easy. It sounds too good to be true. I wonder, I know I'm not the only one that can do this. I know anyone can do this. And you said this from the very beginning and I didn't really answer it. It's like, what is my superpower? Like, why was I so great at this? One, I loved it. The other is I love helping people. I never went into this like, I'm going to do this so I can make a bunch of money. I went into this because I wanted to feel like I was providing some type of value. And when I would listen to people and help solve their problems, there's nothing more rewarding than that. The focus was never money. I know my husband would say, well, we're not making any money on that one. Why are you spending your time doing it? And you're not making money on this one. I'm like, because it'll come back to me. And it always did. And so I think really, no matter how much money you make, no matter how successful you are, that doesn't make you happy. But if you can provide value and help somebody and solve problems and make a difference in the world, that makes you happy, right? And you do have to have money to live, and you can't be working for free. But that was the difference. I found something that does fit in my superpower, and I'm empathetic for people, and I want to help everybody out there. I want to save the world, right? Like I see somebody fall down and I want to just take away the pain, and I want to make it life easier for everyone else around me. And I don't know what that is, why I do that. Just a heart that's too big most of the time. But again,
well, that's why you went to nursing school to begin with, right? Like, that's just something about people, yes, that like nurses, doctor, they care for people beyond just, you know.
You do. You just really got to love people. And nursing is very, very similar, I started realizing. You get the adrenaline rush with homes versus nursing. Nursing, there's an adrenaline rush. There's an emergency happening sometimes. Problem solving. Nurses have to be very, very analytical. Like they have to take in all of the things that are coming in, and they have to figure out what's the most important thing and how can I solve it? And logical, right? And so it's the same with homes and people and their financial problems. It's the same as if they came in with a broken leg. Now they're coming in with a home and a marriage and a life that's broken. And so it's the exact same thing, except...
I love how you just put that.
Yeah, it's a lot more lucrative, and...
It certainly is, and better for your health. Yeah. Better for your health.
Right, yes. And I get to be with my family and schedule my own time. And
I have a friend that's a nurse, and I feel like she's like... This day, she says she doesn't use the bathroom for hours. I'm like, how is that healthy? But she's such a hardworking person that she's so dedicated to her job, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So is your husband supportive of what you do today?
He is. I thought he would get more comfortable with it, or I still scare him to death. I'm definitely the entrepreneur, and he's more of the... What are all the risks and what's going to happen to us? You know, right before Trump got put in, just the last few months have been really... The market's gone down. It's crashed a little bit. It's crashed. I wouldn't even say it's crashed a little bit. It is going down. And I don't think people realize that it's not as strong. I don't think sellers realize their homes are not worth what they thought they were worth.
I mean, days on markets are way longer now.
Right. And so he, just like anyone, I think as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable because of the market, right? And so, but there's a difference between, so what he does is, and I'm sure all of us do this, is he's like, we're just going to have to let our house foreclose, and we're going to move back into the other house that we used to live in, because I ended up getting a new home in August and renting out my old home, and my old home pays the payment on my new home. But the new home is a lot higher payment. So in his mind, it's like, we've got this higher payment. We need to just let it foreclose. And in my mind, I'm like, well, why would you just let it foreclose? Why wouldn't you go sell another house first? Or why wouldn't you? But I think some of us get in these panic modes, or these, what do you call it, survival mode. And so it's a lot mental. I think there's a lot of mental that goes on, that you have to be, okay, what's my next thing? Stay calm. What's the next step? How can I solve this, right? And so I think entrepreneurs and high-driven people like me, I am definitely a high-driven. I love doing everything and anything that I can do, and lots of energy. There's a different outlook and a different mindset behind it, and you got to be willing to be uncomfortable.
All right. So what are some of the things that you would advise people to, if they want to start buying property, how you have done it? What are some of the things that they should watch out for? I think you touched on something on the insurance earlier, but and we can, explore that a little bit more too. But what are some of the things that they need to watch out for?
Yes, today is so similar to the market when I started. And everyone was afraid. Nothing was selling. Homes were sitting. Everyone was afraid of them. We're kind of we're in a very similar market. Not exactly the same, but very, very similar. And this is really when you go and get in. Now is the time where all these people are behind and they can't sell their home for what they owe on it. The ones who bought just a few years ago. So this is a great market to do it in. Again, like I was saying, you have to be willing to be a little uncomfortable, though, because you're going to be getting them for what they owe, which is what they're worth. They might even be a little bit upside down. And it seems really scary as long as you can cash flow it, right? As long as that payment that goes out every month and the HOA, as long as you can turn and rent it for more, I would be okay renting it for what is owed. But if you're new, make sure you give yourself a little bit of room, maybe $200 to $300 a month cash flow, so that you can save some of that money for repairs and things that come up, or just just life happens. I have enough properties right now that the other properties would cover the one if I wasn't cash flowing. Because I still love that the loan's being paid down. I'm still getting the future equity. Because this is long-term play. I hold on to these for a long time. So by buying, I'm okay. It almost doesn't matter what's owed for me. It really doesn't actually. As long as I can make the monthly payment and cash flows. Because I'm going to keep it for the next 10, 15 years anyway. So even if it's upside down, it doesn't matter. I'm not paying it off. I'm just keeping it for future value. So it's a different mindset, but it's exactly how I got my properties in 2010, 2011, 2012. Nobody else wanted them, and they thought I was crazy for taking over properties that didn't have equity, but they had been the best thing ever, and it's been so easy to do. So I would say I do have a mentoring program that I have now, and so I would say find somebody that you can trust, who's doing this the right way, and work with somebody. Don't go through all the things that I had to go through to learn. Just find somebody that can help walk you through it and help you do it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, buying a property subject to takes a lot of paperwork. And if you don't do it correctly, I think it's risky. I mean, if you do one or two occasionally, it's no big deal, right? Can't hurt that bad. But if you start to do 30 like you or 60, you got to do it right.
Yes.
And that leads to, like, for example, have you ever had to file an insurance claim on any property?
I have, and it has completely worked. I had one renter because I was worried about that because this was a huge claim. I actually don't claim hardly anything because I'd rather just pay for it than worrying about dealing with the insurance most of the time. But this was one where a renter had a fire barrel outside of his house, and he would burn his trash in a metal barrel. And I didn't know he was doing this, but he caught the house on fire. So it burned. It took off the whole roof. Pretty much the whole roof. Like it was the whole side of the house and the whole roof. So this was a huge insurance claim. So I claimed it. And luckily I had a great relationship with the borrower on the loan. Because when the insurance company so the insurance company sent the check and the mortgage has to sign it because you have to be current on your loan.
Yes.
And the borrower had to sign it. The borrower,
yeah, because they usually come in the borrower's name and the mortgage company name.
Yeah.
Was your name on it too?
And this one, mine was too, because this is Wells Fargo. And when I got power of attorney for the property, it put in care of, it would be CO. So it had the borrower's name and then it said in care of my name. Yeah. Which I thought was really interesting because they don't all do that. But this one did. So it had me, the people on the loan, and the bank. So the bank had to sign. Yeah. And I could have signed it as power of attorney, but this check was so big. You can't just go, you had to go cash it out at the bank.
Okay.
So I meet the borrower there. And I was a little nervous because I have done this with other borrowers where they know there's money involved and they think the money's theirs. Or they get greedy, right? It's just human nature. And this borrower said, look, I'll pay you $200 to just come sign. And which is way more than they should have, right? But I was and she understood. I'm like, this money's not mine. This money is to go fix the house, right? So I'm not making a bunch of money here. But it was so interesting too. So she met me there. She signed, and they gave it to me in a shoebox, and it was like a shoebox, and I had all this cash, and I think it was like $80,000. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, this is kind of scary. Like, I need to go put this in my car and hide it somehow. But yes.
Wait, she met you at the bank to sign in front of the banker or teller?
Yeah.
So you can cash the check?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's an interesting story.
She met me at the bank. We cashed the check. I gave her $200. She was happy. And luckily didn't get greedy and understood what was going on, and she was fine with it. So it worked. But if I didn't have a good relationship with the borrower, I would have had a little bit of a problem, and I'm sure I would have figured something out with that. But I was able to cash the cash.
That could go so many bad ways, right?
It could. And I actually have someone they're a truck driver, and I actually helped them get a house subject to, just to help him, because he didn't have consistent income, so I couldn't qualify for a loan. And they did have to do an insurance claim, and they tried to take the check and deposit it in their bank, and their bank flagged it and said, oh, this is fraud, even though they had power of attorney and everything, and it's not fraud. And the sad part was they actually cashed the check, so they couldn't send it back to the insurance company and just have the insurance company rewrite a new one. I don't think it's right, because it's not the bank's money, but the bank's just sitting on it, and then they closed the account on them. So I don't know how they're going to get that money. So that's really unfortunate. But what I did learn from that, so I learned from all these different things that happen, is I do have an attorney that knows what I do. And he said, you know what, you should have given me the check. I could have deposited. They have a different type of account. It's an IOTA account. I think that's how you say it. And because they have to deposit checks that come for all kinds of different things for their attorney work. But he's like, I could have gotten that cashed for you, and we could have helped you out. But because he understands when I'm doing something wrong, and we're doing it the right way. But there's ways around it, but you just figure it out as you go.
So the insurance company wouldn't reissue a new check?
Well, because the bank actually cashed it. And then the bank closed the account. So technically the bank is keeping the money, which they shouldn't be able to do. Normally what would happen is they flag the check, because I have had this happen, where I deposit a check that's in someone else's name, and they'll flag it, but then they'll refund the check like 5 days later. They'll send the check back to whoever
they'll send it back.
Yeah,
right.
But for this, in this particular instance, and it's Chase Bank, I don't know how they can get away with that. They shouldn't be able to get away with that. She probably should go after him, but she doesn't really have the money to go after him in like a lawsuit. The bank was telling her that she needs to sign something that says that she did something fraudulent before they would release it, and she didn't do anything fraudulent. So is this the bank where the mortgage was? No,
too?
It's a different bank. No, different bank. It was like their own account, their own personal account, and they're just holding the money hostage.
Well,
it is crazy.
Well, if you are listening and you know how to get around this, we need to hear.
That's right.
Leave it in the comments so
maybe
we
we
can
got good attorneys out there
back.
that can help us go after that. Yes, and that's one thing I haven't been able to find an attorney for. There's real estate attorneys, there's divorce attorneys, but I don't really know someone that will go after. This is such a different situation because people don't do what I'm doing all the time, that it's enough out of the box that I don't really know an attorney that might be able to do that for us.
And is the check big enough to where it's worth it to?
It was $40,000 because it was a mold claim on the house, that the house actually had real mold in it. Most houses don't have the dangerous mold. But this one did. And so, it's a lot.
That's crazy. Okay, so what is your biggest lesson learned from all the deals you have done?
Biggest lesson. Don't get greedy. Do things for the right reason. If you go off your intuition too. If you feel like something's not going to go right, this is my thing. Like a lot of times I know that I shouldn't have done something before I did it. And I did it anyway, and it didn't go right. But every time I really knew that I should do it, and I did it, it was perfect. And a lot of what I have done is my intuition, really. So I say, follow your intuition, because it is real. I know people think, don't do emotion in business, but I think we all do better.
It's all mixed in together.
Yeah. We still do the information, and you still do the logical side, and take action. I think don't hold yourself back, move forward and take action. And there's always a way to solve it. There's a million things out there, and always be helping other people. So, don't be selfish, right? Don't be selfish, help other people. So that's kind of a lot of things, isn't it? Take action, do things for the right reason, help others.
They are good advice.
And it all comes back to you. And that could be any business, right? It doesn't have to be. People want people they can trust. And I was a person that was not going to take advantage of someone, and I was going to help them. And so we all want that. When we say we want success, when we say we want money, really all of it is we want to live a happy life. We want people around us that we trust, that are going to treat us good. And we want good relationships with our friends. And so just be that person, and you're just gonna, it will be abundant for you. Like you'll be successful, and you follow your gut, and things work out. And find good people around you. Like surround yourself with good people.
So Camille, what advice does today Camille have for your 18-year-old Camille?
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's a good one. You know, I wouldn't have done anything different. I think just telling my kids, okay, this is what I would tell them, is dream big. There's so many opportunities out there for you. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. And also just be consistent with the little things. Like be consistent with getting up every day. Be consistent with positive thoughts that come in. Don't let the negative and the world around you get you down. And search. Always be looking and searching for the light and the good, because there's a lot of light and good, and try to drown out all the dark negatives. You still got to be aware of it, but look for the light and the positive, because it's there, and the more you do, the more you'll see.
Oh, just focus on the positive.
Yeah. There really is something about being grateful, being positive, that changes your actions. And then those actions, they're little actions that become big, huge results. Like mine was just reaching out. And mine was a focused, like, let me help all these people that are behind on, or their homes are just sitting empty. And it was just highly focused, but it was consistent. And I wasn't afraid of the hard work. So you got to put in the work, and then you feel better anyway. Work is not bad. Work makes us feel good.
Okay, so last questions here. How does the audience get in touch with you?
Yes, so I now have a great team that helps me, because I did start coaching. And so if you email hello@Women's WC, it's for Women's Wealth Collective, but it's hello@Women's WOMENS.com.
All right. I love Camille's journey. She is an inspiration in my book. And if you found value in this episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because we're dropping amazing stories like this every week. And if you got questions or thoughts or comments, please leave them below. I love to hear from you. I do read them all. Until the next episode, keep at it, and I'll catch you in the next video.